The snow came right on schedule. No hype or exaggeration. It was as bad as predicted.
Bundle up in blankets because it's not safe to be out.
All right, thanks. Stay safe out there.
Another certainty that they would be busy.
All right.
Because no matter technology's march of time, in crises,
we declared a state of emergency at 4:30 today.
Old school radio programs are the warm hearths to gather around.
We want to know, what are you going through?
Kind voices cutting through the roar of that wind. And Newfoundlanders had no idea how vital those voices would prove to be. This is Chrissy Holmes of the St. John's Morning Show.
When they start talking 70 centimeters of snow, but the fallout, things started to get interesting because people really didn't know what a state of emergency was going to mean. Nobody was prepared for this.
By that Friday afternoon, as the snow descended and the sky darkened, those forced to retreat indoors reached out. People rarely surprised by the weather, somehow struck by the novelty of this storm and wanting to share.
I'm making haggis.
And do you do this often on storm days?
I kind of want to build a fort.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Very quickly, it became clear that reaching out wasn't just about sharing an experience, but asking for help.
I just want to thank all of you working today for this terrific broadcast.
That's a woman named Kathy, calling into CBC St. John's Friday afternoon. She has mobility issues and was getting worried, especially because she was alone.
I'm sitting here alone in the dark, not because we've had a power outage. All the large windows I have are covered, smothered with snow. But it's weird in the middle of the day to be sitting in the dark.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's kind of lonely.
The idea of being almost entombed by the snow made for an isolation not everyone was ready for.
There are waves coming over the seawall and hitting the third floor of my home.
It looks like something out of Hollywood special effects.
110 kilometers an hour, those winds, and it was around supper time that the power started going for thousands in the Avalon Peninsula.
We've heard from here. I want to hear from you. What's this?
Ted Blades in St. John's was shepherding the afternoon coverage.
Two of our colleagues left here trying to go 2 blocks to the hotel where we had places to sleep for the night. They left on snowshoes with full suits on, and they didn't get to the end of the parking lot. They turned around and came back and said the winds were just too strong. 15 of us ended up sleeping on the floor here in the station because we simply couldn't leave.
Then it got worse. CBC Newfoundland lost power too. That lifeline suddenly needed one.
20,000 customers were without power in our last check. St. John's, Mount Pearl, North, there are about 10,000 customers without power.
So the Nova Scotia Bureau stepped in, fielding the Newfoundland calls that kept coming deep into the night and through the weekend.
I'm in an area called Monday Pond, which seems to be the epicenter of this whole storm because it's been savage here. It's just been nasty, and with flashes of light, which I guess are generators blowing up. You actually see lightning.
Listening behind the mic, Jeff Douglas in Halifax.
I'm somebody with an anxiety disorder, so I have panic attacks. But I live in, the Jelly Bean Row, so I have neighbors. We're glued together. And she said, if by chance we lose phone service, she said, just pound on our wall.
Yes. Well, it's good to have someone so close.
It's pretty scary, too, I have to say.
Listen, Deborah, knock on your neighbor's wall if you start to get anxious. And if everything else fails, call us back here, all right?
Yeah.
Information is treasured currency in a crisis. Trading it matters. Easier said than done in a storm.
Oh, yeah, the house is covered over on us.
Oh, good Lord. Wow. And to be honest with you, we're really grateful to you for calling because we're having a hard time getting through to people.
We had to do that, boy, to keep things going at a time like this. It's a 2020 storm, and they're going to come around. Old Mother Nature, you're not fucking her. She's going to do her thing.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't mess around. Gus, thanks so much for calling. Be well.
10-4, boy.
You've seen what happened over the next 72 hours when the snow gave up and the sun came out.
We got to thank the city workers. They're out working their butts off. It's a massive undertaking.
People are worn down, right?
They're hurting physically.
I want to ask the community to, check on your neighbor, certainly seniors, make sure that they have what they need.
Newfoundlanders emerged from those snow caves and got to work lifting each other. But without power, without work, sometimes without company, it still wasn't easy. Ted Blades, back on the air in Newfoundland now, reconnected with Kathy, the woman with mobility issues who'd called days earlier and was nervous in her darkened house.
We put out the call to have her neighbors come and try and see if she was all right. People had showed up to help her because they heard her on the radio.
Her relief, and then eventually a province's relief. The snow safely shoved out of harm's way meant the calls changed. But they kept coming, steady streams of thank yous.
And also people are calling in and sharing some incredible stories of human connection.
My children have been shoveling forever.
In the midst of adversity, you can find things to be grateful for.
The feeling that you must have had to see that help had arrived.
I couldn't believe the tears in my eyes, of course. I couldn't help it. It was just incredible.
Thank you to all the strangers who stepped up.
Sorry, I'm verklempt right now.
Yeah.
And thanks for the intimacy of radio, that friend that weathers the storm.